Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Build Your Best Life. I'm Coach Deborah, and I am super excited to have you here with us today, along with my co-host, Brittany Clark. How are you, Brittany?
I'm good. Good evening. How are you today?
Doing wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate it when you come on, because you could be anywhere else, but you decided to join us here today on Build Your Best Life. Hi, Sean, Cleo. Thank you all for tuning in. We're going to get started. But first of all, I want to thank everyone for your prayers, your likes, your comments, and your shares. We really appreciate that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, we have a lot of things going on in society today. And our topic today is peace. But that peace, those letters actually have a deeper meaning. So, peace. People everywhere are cringing at events. People everywhere are cringing at events. Why do I say that? I, for one, don't like to go out anymore because there is so much happening out in the world. You know, the kids are not safe at school. You're not safe at the mall, the movies, the grocery store. There's always some type of violence going on. We're here to talk about topics that are relevant and that people are talking about. So, Brittany and I are going to talk about some of those things today. Uh, we just have a lack of peace. But in the United States, when I was doing my research, we have accumulation of several things that are causing this lack of peace. Rightful gun ownership, racial tension, socioeconomic inequality, gun violence, opinions on behavior of law enforcement, bias, misinformation, inconsistencies throughout cities and states. And this is a big one: knowledgeable and ethical leadership versus charisma and personality. Now, that charisma and personality might win out every time, but what is it that we really need? That knowledge and ethical leadership, right? So that's kind of like a appetizer there for you. What do you think about that, Brittany?
I'm really excited to talk about it. I think there's not enough avenues or capacity these days for people to have, like, you know, conversations where they're not arguing and fighting about their differences, and they're just talking about things that are going on in not just the United States, but the world. So I'm really excited about this.
Good. So we are going to get you started. Hello, Peggy. Thank you for tuning in, and Agnes, as we talk about these things that are causing a lack of peace in our society. And, just like with any relationship that you try to have with someone, if you're not having a cohesive, inner relationship where you can talk and communicate, and, the best of lovers and spouses and friends always have a difference of opinion, but there's a way to talk about that peacefully. So, of those things that I mentioned that are problems here in the United States and all over the country, one of them that I'm going to talk about is gun violence, because that's one that kind of resonates with me. And I did do research on it, of course. So gun violence in the United States is a major public health issue that affects many communities, and we know that, right? Because of the drive-bys, the gang violence, suicide. We have the active shooters in different places. We have assaults, and on and on and on. Well, when I got to looking at the numbers, I was like, oh my goodness. In 2023, 46,728 people died from gun violence. And that's just in the United States. And that was the third highest number. In 2023, 95% of gun-related deaths were either suicides or homicides.
Wow.
Suicide has been the largest percentage of gun-related deaths since 1979. So it's been going on a while, but it's getting worse and worse. 13.8% of every 100,000 people who die from gun-related industries. So out of every 100,000 people, 13.8% died because of violence. Women in the United States are 28 times more likely to be killed with a gun than any woman in any other country.
Wow.
Sad. Then you talk about gun violence in schools. An estimated 4.6 million American children live in a home where at least one gun is kept, loaded, and unlocked.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
That's a lot. And we're talking about loaded and unlocked. And this is not funny, and I hope no crooks are looking at this, but I often laugh and say, Boy, if somebody broke in on me, they'd be like beat me to death before I could get to any type weapon, because I got to find the key. I got to get the bag. I got to unlock it. I got to get the cartridge. I got to put it in the gun because I have grandkids.
Right.
So I'm not going to have it where they could get to it or anything like that. But not everybody thinks that way.
Right.
You know, how many times, because I think recently, this has been this year in the news, a young child, 12 years old. They didn't get a gun from buying it off the street or anything. They got it from home.
You know, there was actually a couple weeks ago, there was a second grader at a school locally to me, and a gun went off. He took the gun to school and it went off in his backpack, shot through somebody else's backpack into their laptop.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is what we're talking about, people. This is why people are cringing. Okay, it says 4 out of 5 school shootings, at least one person had knowledge of the attacker's plan but failed to report it. You know what they say about snitches? I don't care about snitches. Would you rather snitch, be a rat, be called a name, or save your life or someone else's life? I'm telling.
Me too.
I'm telling, and I'm saying I'm telling, but it's gonna be on my way out.
Right.
I'll see y'all later, but I just will let y'all know this is what's going on. Then nearly 6 million women reported having a gun used on them by an intimate partner. These statistics alone should be enough for every single person to say, hey, why is it so easy to get a gun? Why is everyone just able to just walk out and go get a gun and any gun that they want? Tell me, Dan, why? The highest rates of violent deaths by firearm in the world, though, is in Honduras, Venezuela, Colombia, El Salvador, Guatemala, Brazil, and Jamaica. The United States has a high ranking for gun violence compared to other countries, particularly for children and teens. And as far as global ranking, the United States is one of the highest firearm mortality rates in the world, ranking in the 93rd percentile.
But if you think about it, it's also like all the video games that these kids are playing, and they just make it seem like, you know, handling a gun is just like a passive thing. Like, there's no emphasis anymore put on the severity of what happens when you manhandle a gun, you know?
Right. So it's just a fun thing to do. So if they see it, I mean, it's fun. You know, they shoot these people and they get back up. So,
Right.
Hey, you know, that's the thing. Now, when I was coming up, I didn't buy my kids guns. They couldn't be a cowboy. They couldn't be do any of that with guns. We didn't do play guns.
Right.
So, but that was just me. Single mom, raising a son, we didn't do guns.
Right.
Well, I know when I talk about these statistics, I'm not making friends with everyone. Not a big deal. This is Coach Deborah's opinion, nobody else's. But many of you, especially members of the NRA, want the right to bear arms. I don't have an issue with anyone that wants to have a weapon in their home to protect themselves. You may have a single woman that works at night. She has to walk to her car alone. I don't have a problem with that. But I do believe that we should have safeguards. We should have policies and procedures in place, like having a waiting period. Nobody should just be able to walk in, say, I want that gun right there. I want that assault rifle right there. And you just get it and walk out. Because first of all, why would little Deborah, 120 pounds, 5'3", well, 5'2" and a half, what would I need with an assault rifle?
Right.
So you just gonna let me have it. Apparently, they're not looking at ID or not looking at it to see if it's fake or whatever, because you're letting minors have these type weapons and all of this stuff. So why should they have a weapon? Why should a felon, someone that's been in prison for murder, or someone that was an active shooter, all these things, get out and be able to go and get a weapon again. Why? I believe some of the time, some of the things that we do, we don't use wisdom, we don't use common sense. But first and foremost, I think we should think about the safety of ourselves and the safety of our families and other people. If you don't put the dangerous things where people can get them and use them, they can't use them. If they can't use them, we don't have the active shooter situations. We don't have the one-on-one violent gun violence. We don't have people passing by people's homes, shooting in their homes. When are we going to stop people? When are we going to stop? And that, again, that's not everybody on Bill Your Best's life opinion. That's Coach Deborah's opinion. Like I said, I don't have a problem with you having one, but I do believe that you should have to go through a set of rules and regulations in order to have it. And it should be in a safe space, a safe place, especially if you have children. And put your comments in. Don't let just be my opinion. Let me know what you think. I'm done, Brittany.
I think you're definitely right. We have to figure out a way to be smarter about it and a way to impress upon our kids the importance of safe handling a weapon, no matter how you come across it. But you know, that takes time and people who actually care enough to want to do something about it, like us. We need more of us, more people like us. So my next topic to talk about is misinformation. And I think personally, I don't know about you, Deborah, or you guys in the comments, but I think that information, especially in the media, is like a game of telephone. Somebody hears something and they go and tell someone, and as they tell someone, it gets changed a little bit, and that person goes and tells someone and they change it a little bit. And by the time you get to the end of it, it's like, oh, somebody told me Deborah was having a baby. And Deborah was like,
what?
I said I bought a baby doll for my grandchild. I'm not having a baby. But we live in an age where information spreads faster than ever. But not all of it is true. Misinformation can shape public opinion, influence elections, and even impact our health and safety. Sometimes misinformation spreads on accident, like a game of telephone. You misheard something, or you just got excited and you went and told somebody before you heard all the truth. But sometimes it is intentionally spread to manipulate or destroy someone. I personally can't imagine why someone would want to go along and say, like, for instance, I had a coworker recently who left, and she liked to just go up to other coworkers and tell them things about other people that weren't true, just to cause drama. I personally don't see why people do that, but it's something that is commonly done. And in our news media, it's kind of a similar game, except it seems to me anyway, I'm not sure about anybody else, it seems like they're just trying to be the loudest one to get the attention so that they can share all the big news stories. Or they share all the big news stories, or they share things that are not even big news, and we're missing things that are important. We've seen viral claims about miracle cures and, miracle diets that, oh my gosh, it works. And people don't think about it worked for me, but it might not work for everybody else. It's I did this and it worked and you need to do it. And also it's going to be $14.99 a month.
Yeah.
And people suffer because they just believe them. Right. There was a news story, I think it was last month, that was in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where these men escaped a prison and ended up setting it on fire, and then the country was being taken over by these rebels. And if you look on the internet, people had no idea that this was happening. And it's horrifying, but these kinds of things are happening every day. And it's like we have our head in the clouds and we don't even know what's happening in the world around us. I would say the biggest thing with information, and this is something that I do, if I see a news story, or Apple News likes to pop up with these Apple News headlines, and you're like, oh no, this tragic thing has happened. I like to check multiple news sources, and I take all the common things, like sometimes we have one news station here that says, oh, we're going to have severe weather and there's going to be a tornado. And then the next news station is like, it's not going to be that bad. So we don't know if we're going to die or not. But if you think about it, misinformation is also, it's so divisive because people don't know which president to elect or which person to elect for presidency or congressmen or senators or just people who have a voice. We don't know who to elect because there's so much misinformation. You can't tell head or tail of who we're supposed to be voting for or what their ethics are, or if they are just, trying to bamboozle us so that they can get in office because they're the loudest person in the room.
Right.
But I don't know what you think about misinformation, Deborah, but I try very hard to stick to what I know. And if somebody tells me something that I didn't experience myself, I don't say anything about it until I am experiencing it myself and actually have any facts to talk about.
Yeah, misinformation will get you in trouble. If somebody says something and you like, what? And you go repeat it, you better go find out if it's true first.
Right.
Yeah, I learned that. Well, not the hard way. I mean, I didn't do any harm to anybody, but I remember this was years ago, and it was a young man. I think he was like 19, and he was missing. And they said the last time anyone saw him, he had just gone to visit his grandmother. He took her flowers, and he was leaving the hospital, and nobody ever saw him again. And that was just horrific because that was before, it became commonplace. And I was in the grocery store, and this lady, she was a cashier, and she was ringing up, and she said, "That's just sad. I don't know why he's doing that." And she said, he is in Atlanta. He is not missing. He just didn't want his family to know that he was gay. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world? I go repeat it because the way she was saying it, like it had to be true. He wasn't missing. He's in Atlanta. I said, no, what? He got his poor sick grandmama worried about him. And that was a lie. He got snatched from the hospital. He had been killed.
Oh, no.
You know what? Just don't say anything. Just let people talk. Just let them talk. Because now, why would you? I mean, it was just like she just ringing up food, and it was just like she just knew what she was talking about.
Wow.
So I agree with you about misinformation, and a big one for me with misinformation. I hate election time, and I always say, I just wish people would do ads. I don't care how many ads you do or how much advertising you do, but tell us what is it that you can do, what your skills are. Don't tell us what somebody else is not doing and what they used to do and all the crime that they tell about you. Tell the good things about you. Don't worry about the other person. But
Right.
they never pass on the misinformation.
Right.
So, yeah. All right. I hope y'all are finding this interesting. I don't see any comments. I would love to see your comments, though. And we are talking about peace and the fact that people everywhere is cringing at events because of all the crime The world is not peaceful. It's not safe to go out. You don't know what's safe and what's not safe. And so there was about, I think it was about 7 to 8 huge reasons in the United States why we are living in violence. And Brittany and I are covering four of those today. And I am on my second one, which is of the opinions and behaviors of law enforcement. That is a big one on why there is so much violence. So I'm going to talk about that. And this, again, is based on what I know firsthand and what I found out by getting the statistics. So it says that faith in police have fell in 2020 down to 48%. And that was after the whole issue with George Floyd after he was killed. And, you know, everybody that watched that, you saw what happened. So it's not hearsay. So it dropped to 48%. Then the next year, it increased to 51%. In 2022, it dropped. It didn't give a percentage. But then in 2024, it's back at 43%. So there's very low opinion. It says from 2023 through 2024, the confidence in police rose among certain demographics or certain groups of people. And those people are those that are, I guess these would be the millennials, not the millennials, the Gen Zs, I guess they're those 18 to 34. I know those are young adults. So their confidence went from 27% up to 43%. People of color, their confidence in law enforcement went from 31% up to 44%. And then independents, their confidence rose from 37% to 49%, which was huge. It says the reason why there are issues with law enforcement is off-duty life of law enforcement. And I don't know about Dallas, but I know here in Florida, we have had several bad situations with officers and doing, you know, things that are not kosher. But a law enforcement person is a person. He's a
Right.
people. The necessary force, acting impartially, and profiling. One thing that they say that causes a lot of the bias is the news coverage. The news coverage sometimes can be one way swayed, one way or the other, because of course they show what they want to show. They can splice the film or start the pictures or videos or whatever, or, you know, report out on what they want to. So they say the media has a lot to do with it. The verbal exchanges that people see when they do see the news coverage, you know, what is it that they're seeing? Research shows that Black and Latino men are more likely to experience police violence than white men. And we've seen that that's true. I know here in Florida, we have seen that. Past interactions with police, neighborhood characteristics. So if you've lived in an area of town, maybe that there was a lot of crime, so you have more of a police presence, you might have seen a lot more of what people didn't think was good law enforcement behaviors. So it depends on where you live, what you're doing, and different other factors. Of course, law enforcement is hired to do what? To serve and protect. But here's something I want you to think about that I thought about just today. Every industry, whether it's law enforcement, insurance, car salesmen, you name it, they have executives, they have middle management, they have other employees. They all have rules and regulations. They all should have training and protocols that you're supposed to follow. Each of these industries that I mentioned have outstanding employees, employees that are just outstanding. They all have employees that are average. They all have employees that need improvement. And guess what? They all have employees that are horrific.
Mm-hmm.
They are either corrupt or they're doing something that they should not be doing on the job. So
Yep.
it doesn't matter. So just think about that. Now, me personally, so like I say, this is Coach Deborah talking. I personally have had 3 interactions with law enforcement personnel other than car accidents. The first one, I was 18 years old. I ran a stop sign. The officer pulled me over, gave me a ticket. That was that. The second incident I had, there was a blue light behind me. I got pulled over. I stopped. The officer said, "Hey, would you like to buy a ticket to the policeman's ball?" Okay. The third incident I had, we were in a rented vehicle going to an event. It was about 6 or 7 of us in the van. I went through a green light. I got pulled over. The policeman came to my window and he said, "You ran a red light." And I said, "I
No, I didn't.
it was red." "You ran a red light." Okay. But it so happens that somebody in the vehicle with me was in law enforcement. So the policeman got my insurance and everything, and he went back, and the guy in the car went back as well, showed him his badge, and it was, "Y'all have a nice day." So now, should I base all of law enforcement over the 33% or the 67%?
That's a good question.
Okay. So you can run into anyone on any given day. And law enforcement is necessary. Having law enforcement is much better than not having law enforcement, but you have to remember that they are given a strict set of rules. Some of them are going to go by the book. Some of them are going to be more lenient. Some of them are just going to be nasty.
Mm-hmm.
If you go in a store, you just going to run into some customer service people that are just nasty. So that's going to happen wherever you are. But if you can't give a testimony like I can on what you have experienced, then you shouldn't be biased one way or the other, whether law enforcement is just bad. Unless you can prove based on something that's happened to you, like George Floyd, if he was here, he could say that.
Right.
Because he had a very, very bad experience. But that was those officers. Everyone is not like them.
Right.
Okay. So again, and I learned this the hard way, and I found this in my Bible study. If you hear something, don't repeat it unless you ask yourself, is it true? Is it nice?
Mm-hmm.
Is it necessary?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of keep your opinions to yourself. And think about it this way as I close. Every single law enforcement person wants to go home to their family just like you do.
Yep.
And I thank them for their service every time I see one.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, that's a good segue into my last topic, which is knowledge and ethical leadership versus charisma and personality. Because if you have a policeman who is knowledgeable about his job and is wanting to do the right thing, then you probably are going to have a better interaction versus one that is just looking to gain popularity and rise among the ranks, And leadership is more than just being liked or having a magnetic personality. In every sphere, politics, business, faith communities, school, strong leadership requires knowledge, ethical decision-making, and long-term vision, and not just popularity. You could be the loudest in the room, and you could also be very wrong. And I think that most people forget that. They just think that if I'm the loudest in the room, people will listen to me. But most of those people, when something goes wrong, they're like, hey, I just told them what to do. They all did it. I didn't do it. Or I just mentioned something and then I left the room. I wasn't involved. You know, they want to be the loudest, but they don't want to take responsibility. And the thing about charisma is that it can get people to listen, but knowledge and ethics determine whether a leader it can make the right choices, especially when they're in the spotlight. Because I think a lot of times the more knowledgeable or ethical person is the quieter person who is, thinking about what they're going to do before they do it, or thinking about what they're going to say before they say it. But it's the loudest person or the most popular person who gets all the attention.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen leaders who were incredibly charismatic but made reckless choices, and others who weren't as flashy but led with wisdom and integrity, having earned their wisdom and integrity over time. But there are so many people who are missed or discounted because they're just quietly thinking about their next move. I don't know who sings the song, but there's a song and one of the lyrics is real G's move in silence, like the G in lasagna. And I don't think people stop to think about that. Like, who is being consistent and telling us what we need to know versus who is being loud and flashy and I've got money or I've got all these credentials, whoever's usually I tend to be an observer. I like to watch and see who's being the most consistent and then make my decisions about them that way. And when leadership is just about being liked, it can lead to short-term decisions that feel good in the moment but create long-term problems. And I think we see a lot of that in presidency, especially because it seems like we get a lot of presidents who were like trying to correct the mistakes of the last president. And it's like, but what about all the things that you told us you were going to do?
Exactly.
But we don't, and then at the end of their presidency, it's all about, I didn't get to do any of the things that I wanted to do because I had to correct all of so-and-so's mistakes. And it's like, this is a true picture of leadership. We've also seen leaders who were incredibly charismatic, but just make reckless choices, like some people, I just want to tell them, maybe you should sit this one out.
Right.
Charisma is a great tool, but knowledge and ethics are the foundation. We should always strive to choose leaders who don't just make us feel good, but who do what is right when it's hard.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You need to get some water? Yes, we need people to step up and listen more than they talk a lot of times.
Yes, we do. And that's the problem. When leadership is just about being liked, it can lead to short-term decisions that we think will gain us popularity, but are no good in the long run. So I don't know about anyone else, but I always try to choose the person who was going to make the most ethical decisions that will benefit everyone versus the quick and easy decisions that will gain popularity. What do you think, Deborah?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, actually, people like that, they kind of like, they really like turn me off because it's like you say, you're not telling me what I need to know. You're just selling yourself as you're perfect, you know all, you're so smart. Don't tell me, show me,
Yeah.
And you do all this talking, is acting, I'll say. And then when you get in place, you don't do anything that you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
And it's just out of place. It's just out of place. And there are several. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there are several quotes about people, and you referenced it kind of earlier when you were talking. It's better to sit quietly
Mm-hmm.
and open your mouth, and people are like, oh, what? What in the world?
Right.
But if you had kept your mouth closed, we would have thought you were much more intelligent than you really are. But what did you just say out your mouth? You
Right.
didn't realize you were talking, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I was talking with a friend yesterday, about how that sometimes when some people start talking, I want to be like, do you hear yourself? Did you think about that before you said it?
Yes. Yes. Ooh, a lot of hot air. When they say
Yep.
hot air, hot air.
Yep. But that balloon's not going anywhere. That's the problem.
Yeah, that is exactly. The more you blow, the more weight you weighing yourself down. But again, some people are into that charisma and whatever. They just, they just mesmerized by their whole. And I just think, sometimes people make themselves look silly,
Mm-hmm.
but some people just appear to like that.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, I never understood that.
Me either.
But yeah, if I had to, have a choice whether to have knowledge and have better control of who I am and who I appear to be to others, or to be popular, let's just let me have my knowledge and my wisdom.
Yep. I agree. I
Yes.
definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So if you have just joined us, you got to go back and listen to this in its entirety. We were talking about people everywhere are cringing at events, talking about peace and how the world, we were basically, a lot of the statistics were about the United States, but it is a worldwide issue with the lack of peace and some of the reasons why there is no peace. And, a lot of it is perception, a lot of it is misinformation, a lot of it is that we don't have rules and regulations that we uh, come up with to better manage certain situations. We just throw up our hands. And when I say we, I'm talking about the powers to be, because I have no power. We allow people to do what they want to do to make people happy so we can get the big bucks. And those people that have the millions, that can give us donations on what we're trying to do and escalate our lives. I should stop saying their lives to different levels. So they are going to resonate towards those people to try to keep those particular people happy. So you're not caring about what type weapons you're putting in the hands of young people, felons, people that are mentally ill, and, it's society, and it's also the people and families at home. We all need to work together to, make things a little bit better. I used to go to the movies every Friday night, and this was before COVID. That was date night. But since COVID, I've been to movies one time.
Oh,
But I
wow.
was sitting here, and I was like, huh, what? And, someone at the movie theater, and they pull out a knife and start stabbing someone. And then they interviewed this person's brother, and he said, well, yeah, I know he's suffering from mental health issues, and he was having some problems, but he went out. Okay, why you let him go out?
Right.
So, it's just, again, we all have to use our wisdom, our knowledge, things we don't know, we have to research on our own, get the right information, not misinformation, and do whatever we can do to help the world get better, even if it's one step, one person at a time.
I definitely agree with that.
So this is what we were discussing today. Hi, Cynthia. I just saw a comment. Oh, all right. That people have become more what is that? Desensitized even more after COVID hit because of the lack of socializing. If youth is in youth, it's because of social media and video games. Yeah, exactly. We talked about that earlier. Talking about these kids that are on these video games with all this violence, and they think it's fun, and depending on what age and what they think is realistic and what's not, they're killing people, and the people are getting up and walking. It's just getting out of hand, really. Thank you for that comment, Cynthia. You have anything else before we sign off, Brittany?
I think this has been a really great conversation, apart from my, attack of my throat, apparently. Trying to take me out. But I think this has been a really good conversation, and I definitely learned some things, and I hope that everyone else has learned some things, and that we can use these talks to maybe educate people or get some education for ourselves.
Yes. And please, please, please share, because that's the only way we can get this information out to people that don't know, because people don't know what they don't know. So if we don't share, they still don't know. So Please help us by sharing. Please make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube page, as well as subscribing to my Build Your Best Life Facebook page. I know some of you my friends on my regular Facebook page, but please follow me on my Build Your Best Life Facebook page. And Saturday, guess what? Conversation with the guys. They got another hot one. Why young men are struggling. They're going to tell you some areas that our young men are struggling in, and some ways to help them cope in those areas. So you got to tune in. That's Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and 8:30 Central Time. So please join them. And also a week after that, on the 15th, but I'm going to remind you, you're going to have the girls on Moms on a Mission.
Yay!
We're going to have Brittany Clark, Tanya Presley, Jocelyn Charles, and myself. And we got a hot topic for you. I'll tell you more about it next week. But please join us. These are our major Saturdays for these real heavy topics. So join us. And thank you again so much, everyone, for tuning in. I enjoyed it. Remember, building your best life is our business. That's not a slogan. It's our commitment. I love you. Be blessed. Stay safe. We'll see you on Saturday, and then again on Tuesday. And you'll probably be seeing Brittany later on this month. So take care, everyone. Good night.